Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host Brian, and joining me, as always, is your co-host Jim.
Heidi ho.
Hi.
You know, Brian, do you
Yes.
ever have problems when you're like light years away from home trying to get audiobooks?
You know, I do run into that problem occasionally. Sometimes the book won't make it all the way through the subspace relays from
And that's why this episode is sponsored by Ansible. Ansible, purveyor of fine audiobooks at any distance using quantum entrainment technology. We can get your book to you anywhere in real time.
even the newest Jack Campbell book that tells about the beginnings of the Lost Fleet universe that came out yesterday.
Yes. And if you go to ansible.com and use the hash code fake ad, then, well, you don't get anything because it's not real.
We should try and start making this a thing. Seriously, if you feel up to it, I love it. I love it. We should. I'm down if you want to like make a little script or something. That was fantastic. Joining us also is your co-host Hunter.
Also brought to you by Space Depends for when you get
when you absolutely have to kidnap somebody.
when you get interdicted and you have no shields. Space Depends.
It's your last line of defense.
When you have to stay on the bridge longer than you intended, space depends. Oh my god. Sadly, Spaz couldn't join us this week. He's dealing with some family stuff, so sadly about that. But hopefully all the family stuff goes well. And we do have a guest joining us from, oh my god, I wrote it down, but I forget now. Riga, Latvia. Riga, Latvia. Did I say it right? Riga, Latvia?
Yep.
Okay. Internet handle Syndromes, because you won't tell me your real name, so I'm fine with that.
His real name is Spazzy Dragon.
Right.
Well, I decided that you have already have a spazzy, so you know.
That's what he prefers. So I'm not gonna give him grief about it. That's what he prefers to be called. What am I gonna say?
I don't even remember his real name. That's the sad part.
I know it, but I don't. Spaz.
Yeah, we're not gonna tell.
But
I'm just saying.
He has one, but he prefers going by that moniker, so I'm not going to say it. You are in Latvia, and you are one of the server admins out of what? I think you said 4 server admins, right? 4.
The count seems to fluctuate.
Well, I think you said several.
Basically 4, but basically 6.
One of several server admins for the long-running total conversion / mod / piece of amazingness that is Discovery Freelancer, which, folks, if you're not aware, it is kind of a mod, but it's also a total conversion. It's kind of its own thing. It basically is a thing for Freelancer that basically doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, but tries to make a better, bigger wheel, and succeeds brilliantly, I think. We're kind of enamored with it right now because we wanted to play a massively multiplayer game, but as you all know, Elite doesn't do it for us. And Jumpgate really is great, but doesn't have the population to do it for us. So I think it was you, Hunter, that came up with the idea to look at freelance. Was it you, Hunter, that came up with the idea to look at Freelancer Discovery a little while back?
Well, I mean, Jim had talked about it at one point, and like I think we had messed around with it probably about a year ago, I would say.
Something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah, I think so.
And then it kind of, as things tend to kind of fell behind because games are ever evolving and so many are coming out, it's hard to keep up. But looking at something more for our community to get involved with, we were looking at this, and boy howdy, has it come a long way even in just a year. So
yeah, we guys have like DM tools in here now, so you can actually do events and stuff, and like all these things that this game was never supposed to do.
which is amazing.
But it's all held up by Pritt stick and glue.
Well, let's talk about that now.
Oh, it's hacky as hell.
I'm sure it is, but
But it works.
and the problem is, unlike the free space folks, you guys don't have the source code, which is
I don't think that they have the actual source code as well, but I'm pretty sure they did their own thing. Like they were able to do in certain ways a lot more than we did.
Now, the free space folks, the Volition did release the source code back in 2002 because they knew they weren't going to make another free space. So they do have it. But you guys have basically bolted all this together without...
And then duct tape on the bolted part, yeah.
So you've been with the project at least a decade? At least, it sounds like? So how did you...
And I don't know whether or not I still don't know whether or not that is depressing or not.
No, it's not. It's amazing. So you were telling me a little bit about the history last night in a message, but for folks who aren't aware of the mod, can you let's start at the beginning. How did Discovery get started, and like give us like a rundown of how it got to where it is today, if you don't mind.
Well, basically, Disco started off as a visionary of this one Russian dude named Igis. A Igis who sadly is not with the community anymore. He has moved on to other games for like about 6 years now and been kind of prolonging his legacy, so to speak, right? And just like most mods for Freelancer back in the day, it just started off with people saying, you know what this game needs? Imports. It needs imports from existing franchises. So obviously people added stuff like ships from Star Wars, and Battlestar, etc., etc. But at some point, it kind of turned out that this is very appealing for people, and it was made a little bit bigger, and a little bit more bigger, and then more people came along, and, well, here we are now. That is basically the TLDR version. Obviously, I can, delve a little bit deeper, but that's basically the gist of it. We started off small, and then something happened. Well, we did something right.
You've seemed to have done a lot of things right, because there are a lot of things in this mod that a lot of people bemoaned the original Freelancer for not having, like trading tools, for example. Like I was telling you earlier, I did a trading run the other day. The original game, like, it seems so combat focused. Like, it had commodities, but like, yeah, whatever. This is just stuff that you loot after you kill someone to sell. But in your mod, you actually have commodities that you can buy and then see where you could sell it for at the best price. And it might be far away, but it makes it worth it.
Yes, and unlike Elite, it tells you where to sell it for the best price.
Which you would think...
Or at least the best price that you think you have.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky that I just did a run where the best price happened to hold up. So I made quite a bit of money for my lengthy run. But I can imagine that information's not always accurate.
The information is always accurate. It's just that you take a look, you sort the prices by, by the quantity. But at the same time, you can be pretty much 100% sure that there is a place somewhere out there that buys it twice as good.
Really? You just haven't discovered?
You will never. Yes. Oh, you will start off. You will start off with a basic map, but it's still up for you to find the best spots.
Oh, because you said that the game has the original Freelancer systems, but that's like a third of the game, I believe you said. So
it's probably a little bit like that portion is probably a little bit less by now.
Dear Lord,
we did add a lot of things, and that way removed a lot of things. And so, we kind of ended up adding too many systems at some point.
Is there such a thing?
Yes, especially when the server population is constantly changing, that we kind of add systems and then kind of subtract systems so the overall amount of players don't get, quote, lost in the experience, so to speak.
And I have to say, I've noticed that the population does seem to vary. Like, I've noticed there's at times maybe a couple hundred people on. Sometimes there's about between a dozen to 50 people, depending on the time of day and whatnot. But
Yeah, I've seen it up to 80.
that's pretty good. Like I think I logged in the weekend the other day and I saw it was well over 100 people.
It has
Uh,
10 times more players on any given day than God Factory Wingman.
or Jumpgate, which is the sad part. That's the
Well,
really
to
sad.
be fair, we're currently the only surviving populated server. Void kind of went down the drain. Hamburg City went down the drain. We're currently managing to kind of hold up the whole like freelancer multiplayer aspect of the game, that what actually still counts as one. So
But I mean, this.
hopefully that number is going to like go up.
Oh, hopefully. But what I'm saying is, this is a 14-year-old game, and you still have dozens of people playing it on a regular basis. Not just playing it, role playing it, which is something I wanted to talk about. When I did my long, like 3-hour stream a couple weeks ago, there were people role playing the Navy. Which and you were also telling me a story about how someone role plays a police officer.
Well, the server is a roleplay server, so when you make a character, you basically pick a faction you want to immerse yourself in, and then you roleplay to that faction. And apparently, this was the right thing to do, because Discovery used to have two servers. We used to have a roleplay server, and we used to have a dedicated PvP server. And well, the roleplay one survives to this day, and the PvP one was discontinued. So apparently this is something that people can get into as long as they immerse themselves.
And now I want to ask, because to role play a certain thing, you have to buy a specific like license type thing. You have to buy like in Privateer, you'd have to get a letter of marque, for example. I mean, not Privateer, like Sid Meier's Pirates is the example I think of, where you had to get a letter of marque, to work for a specific faction or country or whatever. Here you have to get like an ID, I believe it's called, to be a cop or to be a miner.
Yes.
How did you guys get that? Because the original game didn't have that, for example. How did you guys get?
The original game didn't have a lot of things.
It didn't
and the
have a lot
problem
of
with,
things.
Yeah.
It was a great
the
game.
problem with
It's a great game, but yeah, it was missing a lot.
slightly unfinished. Slightly unfinished.
Yeah.
We tried our best though.
For example, how did you bolt that kind of ID system into the game?
Well, basically what happened is that people wanted a roleplay environment. At some point, I think what happened is that during one of the very, very early iterations of Discovery, when it actually became public and downloadable by other people, at some point people just started roleplaying because back in 2007, 2006, it was, well, very popular. And it still is popular. And basically what happened is that we quickly find out that Freelancer, in its close to vanilla state, at that point we only had additional systems, additional ships, that the mod actually offered. And at that point, we realized that in order to make this a roleplay environment, there are many things that players should be able to do, and many things the players shouldn't be able to do, right? So, for example, without the ID, you could get a Liberty Navy ship, and you could, roleplay yourself as a Liberty Navy officer, right? But nothing without an ID, nothing stops you from suddenly starting to shoot people without any meaning, or trying to extort traders, piracy, etc. So, something that wouldn't really make sense in a roleplay environment. And basically, something that we couldn't reinforce with the game mechanics, we had to enforce with these IDs. And apart from many of the other game systems that they're responsible for, it's basically a in-game item that allows players to know what to expect from your character, what kind of limitations it has, right? And at the same time, it acts as a TLDR introduction of what your character can do and what they can't do. That'd be it. Yes, very close, very very short way to explain it.
But I'm fascinated to know how you bolted that into a game that never had anything like that to begin with.
Well, you can add a whole myriad of internal items as long as you kind of pointed out that it needs to show up in that specific slot. And at that point, it was just specifying where the item is being mounted, what it is, what does it do, and well, you see it when you scan people. Freelancer is probably one of the easiest games to mod, and at the same time, the most annoying games to mod.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that, because one of the things that Jim and I were looking at was your server tools.
Good
And
luck.
well, what's funny about it is like the game is so easily moddable, but like at the same time, it's also like stupid fragile.
Yes, it's made out of crisps. Don't blow it. Like, don't blow at it too much. It is going to fall over. This is why we don't have large content patches anymore. It's like you introduce things step by step, and then you have a cooldown period where you're just sitting at the forums, sitting at the bug report thread, and just waiting for someone to bump it. It's like, hey, I accidentally crashed the whole server.
Oh, so is that what you used to
Whoops.
do? You used to do big content patches, and then that would just cause all kinds of problems. So
Oh yes.
you've iterated smaller. Now you'd have smaller, littler patches. I'm guessing.
Exactly. Exactly. For those, like, all the people who have delved into freelancer modding over the last 10 years, they probably remember that usually the tool to use for this freelancer mod manager.
Yes.
But the problem is that in order to do that, we did use it for quite a while. But the problem with that is that every time you wanted to make a patch or a update, the players would have to uninstall everything, download the new mod, install everything, and as you might expect, patching, especially for like minor fixes, like something that breaks the server, for example, there's a NPC patrol path that is not syncing correctly, and if it spawns NPCs around you at that point, it just crashes the whole game. Well, then people need to uninstall everything again, download the updated version, and install it again. So we ended up kind of moving away from that system. Now we have a patcher, we have a launcher, we have a patcher. So that makes things easier. Thank God.
Sorry, my push to talk is acting funny. I noticed, but before I did my big stream, it downloaded a small patch a couple weeks ago. It was very easy. It was very seamless.
It
Now,
just
sorry, go ahead.
just open the launcher, and the obviously this is an old game, so the tiny little patches are less than you're probably not even going to know patch something.
Yeah, that was the only patch I've ever seen it do, and it worked. It worked flawlessly, like without a problem. It's very impressive. How much work? How I I'm sorry. How much work went into making that launcher?
The launcher is courtesy of our FLHook dev, Ali, who is still trying to step away from the community, but we kind of keep calling her back. The problem is, Discovery, like most of its content, physical content that players can see, ships, systems, equipment, all of that is made by our devs. And it is something that you can train people to make. They can learn. There are tutorials, there are tools. It is something that you can sit down and learn to do. But at the same time, all of the background stuff, the actual plugins the server uses, the plugins you see, the events, everything is done with a FLHook program. That's basically the way to add things to the freelancer that was never meant to happen in general, right? And we currently only have one person with 2 trainees who are capable of that sort of coding, and we are still heavily reliant on sites like Starport. So that's basically how it happens.
Good old Starport. Is it still
Yeah,
around? I
there's
haven't been
2
there.
levels.
Is it still
Oh,
around?
it's
I
still
haven't
around, and
been there
it's
in a million
like
years.
Yep, and threads are still being posted, and Freelancer is still being modded.
That is amazing because I remember playing with mods like within a year of this coming out back in the day, and just really impressed as to what people were doing. And I was for a while a heavy mod manager user. I'd switch back and forth between all kinds of mods. Like, what was one of the big ones back in the day? Crossfire? What's it called? Was that the big? Was that one of the big ones?
That's another one that's still around a little bit.
Oh, it's still
Yeah,
around.
Crossfire, Flak 88.
Wow.
So Crossfire still incorporates the single player campaign. So if you want to play the single player with the graphics bumped up, that's probably the way to go there. But you still
We had to get rid of it.
Yeah, you need the Freelancer mod manager for that because you have to download it separately and inject it into your Freelancer install. Whereas this thing can just install itself.
There was actually another reason why we kind of went with the patcher thing, and it's that in today's, in year 2017, players are interested in these older titles, players who didn't play the original games, but at the same time, we are also talking about a new demographic of players who are not used to trying to mod things and then troubleshoot. They want to install something. They want things to work straight out of the box. And hopefully that patcher kind of lets it work. It's a lot less of a hassle.
See, this describes our earlier conversation this morning when we were talking about early access here on Discord. People just want it to work right out of the box when early access is like, hey, we're still making this, we're still troubleshooting it, we're still, So I totally understand the issue with wanting a mod and then needing to tweak it over time to make it better.
Obviously, considering the overall population across all of the servers is dropping because, hey, the game is getting old, let's face it. And this is 2017, there's a lot less of a void when it comes to sort of arcade space sim-esque titles coming out. There was a bit of a boom at some point a few years back, right? We're kind of trying to make sure that people who do decide to try Discovery, that they actually succeed, they get to actually play the game and experience it, and that they don't give up somewhere along the way. They download, they install things, it doesn't work, they go like, oh well, I tried, and they just go back to other games that they play.
Well,
it's kind of a battle for every single person at this point.
I think it's interesting. Even though there has been a resurgence in space games, there hasn't been a resurgence in freelancer style games. I mean, there are a couple of games that try to copy the formula, like Dark Star 1 and Sirius Online.
Avorian's also very freelancer-esque.
What about that one that you can play on PC and Android? God, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue. Yes, that one.
Don't know what that one though.
That one fits the mold.
I would say that one
it's not as it's not as depthy maybe, but it's still definitely it's close.
Well, I would say it's definitely much more on the MMO side of things. I also would say I don't know what it is.
And they're still heavily developing it too.
It's true. They just released a patch yesterday. But the thing about Freelancer is it perfectly skirted the line between depth and accessibility thanks to its control scheme. And there have been other games that have tried to copy it and none have gotten. I don't know what it is about it, but there's something about Freelancer
probably the way.
Huh?
It's probably the way that the camera moves.
Yeah, it's intuitive.
We had these topics. We had these topics before, what makes freelancer. So it mostly stemmed from the topics basically. Hey, let's recreate a freelancer-esque game on I don't know, Unity or Unreal Engine or something. So what is the first thing that you need to get so that it feels familiar and it feels Freelancer? And probably the first answers you would get is to get down the way the camera moves with the ship. If you're currently playing your footage in the background, you can see that the camera kind of moves back from the ship when you go one side. It kind of leans to one side, leans to the other side. And if you're playing third person, as you should be,
Mm-hmm. Wait a
and
minute.
if someone actually got that
God,
movement
I
down,
feel like I just got judged hard.
No, it's supposed to be played third
Judging.
person. There's,
I know.
mean,
Yes.
you can play it first person, but come on, it's not the way
I
it's
know.
meant to be played. But yeah, there's something about so intuitive about the way the camera flows as you're moving around. It just feels
it's very comfortable.
very comfortable and natural. It just feels really right. And it's weird because no matter what size ship you get, like from this large transport that I'm flying, these little fighters, it feels like it adapts really well to what you're flying.
Well, here's the thing. Like, from a technical aspect, every ship has a setting of where the player camera be. And as far as I know, there is just a formula. You take the size of the ship, then you adjust that. The formula adjusts how far back it needs to be and how upwards into the relation to, from the horizontal line it needs to be, so that you can see almost all of your ship in most cases. And at the same time, it doesn't take up a lot of screen space. And at the same time, the camera is not pointing down because, of course, you're still flying in a 3D environment.
Right, and that is the thing I was going to say. There are a lot of space. I think the biggest resurgent space game is the top-down, like 2D, space game. And I think that's where a lot of the resurgence has been coming from. But not a lot of games try this pseudo 2.5 3D thing that Freelancer is doing that succeeds so well at. Which is so. Yes, Katajarin, Star Sector is great, but that's also a top-down 2D game. Even though it's a great one, and probably one of the best ones, sir, it's not this. And you're right. It's something to do with the controls and the camera, and just the way the combat flowed was just so fluid. I think another game, the other thing, and we mention this all the time, that this game does so well, that few games really emulate well, is the radio chatter. You got other ships. You got other ships flying around, but they're talking to each other. And does Discovery add any of that, or is there just so much of it that it feels like it doesn't feel repetitive?
It feels. It feels. The funny thing is, like the original game, straight off the bat, Discovery didn't add any chatter, right? The amount of voice content in the original game was so copious that it actually still holds up. Like Discovery,
it does
made the universe 3 times or 4 times larger, and it still feels like there's enough audio sort of encounters. It's still populated.
Yeah, and I like how the voices are a little dynamic. Like I was flying around last night, and usually in the single player campaign, you're just Freelancer Alpha 1-1, like Katarjian.
That's actually from the original game. If you play multiplayer with the original game, they are actually going to code numbers.
Yeah, I noticed that because I haven't played much multiplayer before this. And so I noticed, like last night, I was Freelancer 20-1. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And I wasn't sure if your mod did that or if that was vanilla. But that's vanilla?
That was vanilla.
Oh
That's vanilla.
That's amazing.
They thought of many, many things when they made this game.
Apparently.
And just as surprisingly, they didn't think of things. Such as all of the stats of the game being client side, which means that hey, I can just tweak a few files and make myself invulnerable in multiplayer.
Oh, really?
They did not think that too. Yeah, they did not think that through.
So how
Thankfully,
does
Discovery does have a very good anti-cheat system.
I was gonna say how does Discovery get around that? How does the anti-cheat system work?
It's also the launcher. That's our anti-cheat system. It basically just reads your game files and memory. If you start doing something odd, it is going to make you very sad.
Oh, I noticed that because I tried running the mod without the launcher, and like it wouldn't let
Nope,
me
it's
connect.
not going to let you.
It
Nope,
well, I
nope.
could run the game, but it wouldn't let me actually like really do anything. Like I couldn't connect to the server and all this stuff. So, yeah, you really need to run the launcher. Because I tried doing the DX Win thing I was telling you about, where I wanted to lock the
Mhm.
cursor into the window. Um, but yeah, you have to have the launcher. So, what would you say? Because I'm fascinated about modding this game. What would you say is the easiest thing to mod, and what would you say is the most difficult thing to mod in Freelancer?
I'd say the easiest thing to mod are weapons, but the hardest thing is to make something new and something interesting when it comes to. I mean, sure, you can make a gun that shoots faster and a gun that shoots, at longer ranges, and you can change the audio of the gun. But try making something completely new with new effects, like a beam weapon or maybe a cluster missile that, when you shoot it doesn't spawn in front of you, but instead spawns at an angle or fires 5 shots at the same time.
Oh,
Disco and Freelancer in general is easy to mod, but it's very hard to make something that is different, that it's worth adding, so to speak.
right. But your mod adds so much, not just systems, but like how many ships does Discovery add to the game?
At this point, we have added more than
Oh
250
my god.
ships, and
Oh,
the thing is, it's not just ships, it's ship types.
right.
And
Yeah,
that's
of
probably
course.
one of
Yeah.
our biggest things. We do introduce capital ships.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And at the same time, yes, capital ships are the most expensive ships you can get in the game. And yes, they are powerful and they are very good at dealing with other ships, but they are never considered the quote best ship, right? It's still about fighter combat. You can still do everything with a fighter.
So there's no death penalty, right? So
There is
once you've
there's very
achieved
little.
Like,
yeah, so once you've
do you lose your
achieved a
cargo?
certain level,
Like, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Well, I'm
And,
I'm just looking at like there's no way to get a setback from like you took a ship out and like in Elite, right? You go out, you get killed, you got to pay like 10% of the purchase price of your ship to get it back. That kind of deal, 5%, whatever it is. So
funnily enough,
that's
this is something that people both want to see in the mod, and at the same time, it is something they don't want to see in the mod because
well,
sometimes you just die to the most stupid ways possible.
mhm. Yeah, but
For
it's
example,
just the
if you
thing
ever
of like
float,
once you've achieved a giant ship, if you well, also if you get in a big ship and then you want to go back to a fighter, then the rebuy, like when you trade that ship in, it's minuscule compared. I think it's what like
yes, but you
60%
never you
something.
should never consider selling a ship. You buy a ship, okay, keep the ship. Hey, make a new character. Uh, the launcher does allow you to. Obviously, Freelancer still has that limitation whether you have a certain fixed amount of characters per account, but you can swap between accounts now because the launcher allows it. It's just a double click and you swap between accounts, and you have another set of 7 slots to use for characters. We have players on the server that have maybe 20, 30 accounts,
Oh,
five
wow.
players, 5 characters each. That's normal. That's something that we want new players to understand. This is not like a regular MMO. The more characters you get, the more flexible you are, the more fun you can have in Disco.
Okay, well
Oh,
that's
I
cool.
see. That's really
Because so
awesome.
basically, I just have a character for each ship, and I keep the ships forever. That's
Yep,
that's the
exactly.
workaround of not being able to have a garage full of ships.
Pretty much. I mean, there's many ways to do this. For example, you can have one character who, well, just if you want to have multiple ships for that, name the ships similarly, like I don't know, some sort of a call sign. And if you want another ship for that character, make the same call sign but add a dot. That's a very popular way to do that, for example.
Now, talking about the characters, because I don't think this was something in the original game, you could have a money transfer be between different characters under your umbrella character. So, like when I was doing the stream a while back, and you said there was a money making character, I had no idea what you're talking about. But now that I've learned that you can make like a mining character, have them make a lot of money, and then send some of that money to one of your other characters. Is that's how it works, right? You can that's
Exactly. I still the funny thing is we didn't always have that. I made Discovery when it was new back in 2000, relatively new, right? We didn't get a lot of server commands because Ethelhook was still being dicey as hell and unstable. At that point, it wasn't kind of it wasn't a big deal to see players in New York go like, "Hey, can you help me with the transfer? Hey, can you help me with the transfer?" Right? And these days, it's just make a new character. When you have a character you make your money on, be it a trader or a miner or whatever, you go, hey, you know what? I want to make a pirate character. I want to join the Outcasts. Well, make an Outcast character. Just make a new character, restart as Outcast so you get the ID and the map and the reputation for that character, and just transfer the money from your money-making character to that character and just set it up as you see fit.
so how many? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Now, I noticed there are a bajillion server commands. Is that something the mod added, or were they there
Yes.
vanilla? Oh, okay. Like
Vanilla had no server
Oh
commands
my god, none
at all. None.
really? Oh my god. So how did that get implemented, and how much work did that take? 'Cause it sounds like there was a lot of iteration getting to a stable point where you can have server commands.
Exactly. Well, Ethelhook in general is not specifically native to Disco. It is just a server software Freelancer server uses. It's just that our version of Ethelhook specifically adds stuff that is used on server. For example, the text that you see when you enter a system for specific times. Obviously, cash transfers is not exclusive to Discovery Freelancer. It's also used on other servers. Ethelhook in general is just a third-party Freelancer server management plugin that just adds all of the stuff that Freelancer should have had at the day of its release, but obviously didn't. Multiplayer was seemingly an afterthought for that time. And obviously, with the numbers that we get and we got and we are still getting, it still exceeds what the original developers had in mind when it comes to Freelancer. I think they actually made Freelancer multiplayer with the idea, hey, I'm gonna, play with my buds a bit of a co-op with missions and trading and stuff. They never thought it would be around 100 people playing or something.
Oh, I was trying to look up this thing you were talking about. I thought it was called Ethel Hook, like the woman's
FL
name
Hook,
Ethel.
Freelancer.
But it's FL. Yes, I figured that out. So I've never heard of FL Hook before. What exactly is that?
Well, it's basically a injector / memory modifier. It's there's a lot of stuff that you can do server side dynamically, and there's a lot of things you cannot do server side dynamically. And basically, FL Hook handles a lot of stuff that you can do dynamically from the server side. It allows players to transfer money. It allows them to change their reputation for the character. For example, hey, I'm going to make a Freelancer character, but for some reason I'm flashing the wrong IFF. Some other faction's reputation is higher than my intended one. Well, it's okay. I just type in /drop rep, and the FL hook just adjusts my character file server side.
Oh, so that's something a GM can do. That's not something like a user could do for themselves.
It's exactly what you can do for yourself. It's again, you're playing a roleplay character, so obviously setting up the you need it to be is a big deal. So, if
Oh.
you have the wrong reputation, you can instantly fix it. You don't need to ask an admin for that.
Oh my god. So you have all kinds of flexibility on the server to roleplay
Yes.
exactly the type of character you want, basically.
Exactly.
And you were saying that people with different like IDs and whatnot have different abilities. Like you were telling me that the police officer, for example, something like they can see who's using trade lanes and systems around them, for
Yes.
example. How does that work?
Yeah. It's actually very simple. The technical way that this works is basically the FL hook plugin reads the changes to the characters, and obviously when you're taking some sort of lanes, it adjusts your character accordingly. Also, my Skype is showing that I'm reconnecting. Am I still here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Discord?
Oh, my Skype is being odd. It's
You
currently
mean you mean
I'm
Discord?
not connected.
Do you mean Discord?
Are,
No,
are you saying Discord or?
no, I'm saying Skype. My Skype icon has changed to the reconnecting, so I thought my internet might have froze. But
Yeah, well,
I'll-
Tuesday nights we used to use Skype too, and we stopped because it was always doing that for us on Tuesdays.
that is strange as hell.
Wait, are you using Skype to connect to
I'm
us?
using both Skype and Discord and a lot of
Whoa,
things.
no, no,
I need
no,
to
no,
be
no,
everywhere.
no. That's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea, but I need to be everywhere because server admin and players like to address you in the weirdest of ways. I think the only way the
Oh.
players haven't tried to get in contact with me was snail mail, but
Oh, no.
I still haven't ruled it out completely.
Yeah,
That
we
chance.
we moved from Skype a while back because we hate it, hate it, hate it so much. We tried Mumble for a while, and that was a nice service, but not great on the usability at all. So that's why we're fairly happy with Discord because it seems pretty usable.
I'm
But
actually surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised with this.
yeah, so are we. We're really happy with Discord. And so far, we haven't had to switch to anything else yet.
But yeah, regarding the police characters, that's basically
please.
it. Police characters, when you enable this command, it's called flagsnet. Obviously, we named it something that would make sense to roleplay. It just means that the police, for their specific house, so for example, Liberty Police can only see the lanes in their house, and they have two modes.
Oh my god.
Either they only see in their system, in their specific system where they are in, or they see every single Liberty system in Liberty.
Oh my god.
Depending on how populated the server is at the time, you might want to switch from one to the other. But yes, all the command does, it allows you to see what character has taken what lane. It has specifically been made to be slightly vague, so that players who do want to smuggle, etc., they are going to get that chance. So if you would scan a player, you would see that, okay, so this guy is carrying something, but you don't know what his ship is. You don't know where exactly he is. You just know that he has exited from a gate or entered a gate or entered a lane, and everything else is just guesswork. Try to coordinate your best with other players if you want to catch them, if they are if you see that they're hauling something they should probably not be hauling.
Are there bounties on players?
Oh yes, obviously.
Oh, really?
Oh, it is so easy to piss off players who just make money, and usually people because they already have credits. If you start pissing them off, they're gonna make sure that once you dock from your little pirate rock base, you're gonna have 5 bounty hunters sitting right there waiting for you.
Can you put bounties on other players?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my god.
All
This is
bounties obviously need to be made in roleplay,
right,
so to prevent
of course, but
griefing
this is
and to
like
fit with the situation.
really doing everything that we want Elite to
The
do.
game should have been.
Yeah, this is
Exactly.
everything we want Elite to do, like right now. Oh my god.
There is a way. There is a way to make the system automated, but it was our choice not to make it automated. It was more of a game design choice, if anything, because it is a little bit too easy to get upset a player, not a character, but a player. It's very easy to get upset at a player out of roleplay and post a bounty because of that. So if a player actually has to write up the bounty on the forums, it gives them a little, that little chance to get a sandwich, so to speak. And obviously, at the same time, we do have blanket bounties. These bounties are present for all the time. So, for example, you have Liberty Government, players who basically, quote, run a whole house. I'm going to explain about factions a little bit later, but basically, what happens is that they basically just make a Liberty public bounty board. You can sign up, and these bounties are always present. You can claim them whenever. So it's not just individual bounties.
Stupid push to talk. Um, that's my god. So, kind of a side question. Um, Doc Bonsai in the stream chat says he's uh having trouble, like he doesn't feel Discovery is as open because it forces you down a certain path and it's hard to role play when you have multiple characters. Which I I I don't see it. But for a new player who wanted to jump into Discovery like today, would you recommend that they do that restart beginner thing? Like, what would you recommend, like, for a new player if they like downloaded and installed this today, and um, maybe they haven't
What I
played
would just
Freelancer before.
directly, the first thing, if they haven't played Freelancer before at all, I think the first thing is to watch a little single player,
Is to
because
watch some single player or to play some single player?
either play, or if they can't do that for one reason or another, or they don't like it, they probably should watch a let's play, because at least they will know the lore. If you want to jump into Freelancer, Discovery Freelancer, you kind of need to know the basics at least. You kind of need to know what has happened and what the current situation is. Discovery advances the storyline after the events of the in-game content, where Edison Trent obviously sends the nomads back into the space vacuum, and we kind of build on top of that. So you kind of need to know something about the game. You need to know something about the lore. So that is probably the first thing a new player needs to go. And the second thing would be get a friend. Just go in game, meet someone, hook up with them, and Freelancer is more fun with other players. Solo is going to be appealing for many people, but what makes Discovery mod interesting is the community itself, because you can make a lot of friends, and that's basically, as long as you have someone to play the game with, you're obviously going to enjoy the game a little bit more.
And it's amazing because since it's all like a single server, there's none of this instancing crap that Elite has to deal with. So like, if I was a miner and I wanted to say, have a friend come with me in a group, and I will pay them part of my profit to be my escort while I go mine, that's not hard to do because of the server commands to give money and whatnot.
Exactly.
So there are all kinds of opportunities for role playing and collaboration, which is super exciting. Now, how hard is it to set up your own? Because we do want to eventually set up your own. Like, is it difficult to set up your own Discovery server?
No, actually, it's just a double click. You double click, and it's going, you know, player is going to plan. The issue is that if you want to set it up to the level of our server, the official server, there are just things that your installation, your client installation is not going to come with. So one example would be the anti-cheat system, which we have to keep a secret. And the others are some very specific plugins that we use on the server, which are, well, they're just not needed for a client install. So obviously that would be event-related things for like spawning things and etc. But as a regular player, yes, you can make your server. You can give your IP address to your friends. You can have fun on your own server. It's just that Discovery as a mod was never exactly intended for something like that. Heck, I mean, we even got rid of the single player, although that was a bit of a balance thing. But yeah, the mod is almost 100% just for this one server that we're currently using. It's not exactly intended to be, privately run. We didn't think to include that sort of content.
What if we want that for our little server? Is there any way we can convince you to share it
You
with
already
us?
can. It's just,
Okay.
I mean, you already can. It's all there. It's just that you want the full access because at some point we just stopped updating that specific folder.
Oh. So to get the full experience, we need to use the official server.
Well, pretty much, yeah. But that's because someone else is doing all this. For example, obviously, like apart from ships and systems you can explore, there's also a lot of other things, such as player-owned bases that players can create, destroy, and maintain, obviously, and make goodies on it.
Right. So
And
like,
while that is that is also included in install if you wanted to make a server, but your install doesn't really have a lot of things associated with it.
okay,
Because again,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go.
No, I'm just thinking we're talking about creating our own like space game junkie server, and it sounds like it wouldn't be as robust as your server.
It wouldn't be robust only from the side of server management.
Oh, I see.
You would probably have a very similar experience. Well, actually, no.
What?
You won't have the player count, etc., etc.
Sure.
But if you want to just play the mod on your own private server, yeah, sure, it's gonna go completely fine. You can just use whatever it already comes with.
Oh, okay.
There's
Okay.
no content that is lacking.
Okay, I misunderstood. Because one thing that looked really
As
sorry, go ahead.
Hmm? No, go.
No, I was gonna say because one thing I found fascinating as I've been playing is there seem to be like events that pop up, like oh, there's some omegas over here near New York. Don't go near New York. That was amazing. How is that kind of stuff done?
Step 1, be bored. Step 2, log your admin ship and set up a event for players. That is really it. Sadly, because of the nature of these events, they can be automated. Because it really depends on the context of what is going on. The game doesn't know how many players are there. They don't know what level of players there are there. So if you want to make a tiny little event, say, hey, come shoot these nasty nomad ships, protect the civilians. Obviously, if the game doesn't know what current players are in the area, it might spawn something a little bit too big for players to handle.
Oh, now let me
Or
ask.
spawn it where just there's no one in those systems.
So we definitely want to be spawning things where there are players. Like, come here and we're gonna do a thing. Is there like an observer mode if you wanted to be like a spectator while an event is going
No,
on?
but you can if you are the server administrator, admin specific commands, and one of them is a character.
Oh, okay.
And yes, we do have cloaks. We do have cloaks. You can turn invisible and sneak around and make booing noises behind players' backs.
Really? Someone was asking about that, I think, on YouTube with whether you guys, and I forgot to ask about it, but whether you guys implemented cloaks, and it sounds like you did. Like, so you can be
Oh yeah.
completely invisible to players. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Albeit obviously for a specific amount of time, because cloaks are mainly an offensive weapon against other players' fights. So, for example, you have battleships, very slow, ponderous ships that are they don't have a thruster. Their impulse speed is limited to 80, and obviously they have huge amounts of frontal firepower. Now, getting close to an actual target is still kind of problematic, so these ships tend to employ cloaks, so they can sneak up on players.
Stupid push to talk, and you can buy a cloak for your own ship if you want to. Is that something?
Yes, there is. The cloaks are created by players on basis. They're not buyable from vendors. But you can just dock on a player base, see if it sells, you can buy them, or you can buy it off another player in the forums. There's just a out of roleplay section, basically. Hey, I want to buy a cloaking device for a fighter, or hey, I want to sell these code names. Or hey, I don't want to I don't want to fly this battleship anymore. Who wants to buy it? Again, because hey, the NPC vendor is only going to give you back half of the price of the original ship. So why would you do that? Sell to another player instead.
Um, so is I saw some consternation, I think, around the whole 50% buyback cost. Is there a reason for that specifically?
I don't know. You actually told me that it turns out that the vanilla was more. I don't know why it was changed, but if my guess would be that it was for the sake of a money sink, because if there are many faults in Disco, then one of the things is that there is no money sink to speak of. You keep accumulating your money because, again, you don't lose your ships or gear when you die. And the other one is to facilitate player interaction. Because, again, it's going to be more profitable for you to just not to sell that character to a NPC vendor. Instead, you sell the ship to another player instead.
So where's the server located for this?
Friends, we are using a actual um, actual server host for that.
Oh, that's
We
pretty
used
good.
to. I actually linked that picture earlier today. I showed the original Discovery
Yeah, I
server
saw
box
that.
with a
I saw
freaking
that.
Simpsons, little Simpsons sticker on the front with a marker saying "Disco Server." Oh, that
Uh,
was beautiful.
because I didn't notice it was overseas because I never get a ping above 100 something. It's always a very good ping, and I've never really had. The only time I ever had lag was when it thought I had reached a destination when I hadn't, and that only happened once. Um, in my
Oh, that's actually a known bug. It actually happens if you the game,
if what?
and it usually happens. If, the select closest route done, and you take a lane, and you alt tab from the game for a moment, and you tab back in, and
Oh,
the previous waypoint is somewhere behind you, so
yeah, something like that
the
happened.
game thinks, yeah.
Yeah, I was running it in windowed mode, and so it probably thought I all tabbed out when I moved
Yeah,
the cursor to another window. Which, by the way,
it does that.
it's really impressive that you guys like. Does vanilla Freelancer do windowed mode, or is that something you guys
No,
hacked in?
no.
How did you do that?
It was something. It was something that was hacked in, but I really doubt that it was
Hmm? You're kind of cutting
existing.
out.
It's a
I'm
public
so,
existing code that it was. Yep.
You seem to be cutting out
yeah,
every now
you
and then,
seem to be
dude.
cutting out a bit
That is
here and there.
strange.
I'm telling you,
That is
I'm
strange.
telling you, kill Skype for just a little bit. Just kill
Yeah,
it.
let's just kill Skype. Bye. Hey, there we go. But yeah, I don't think Disco was the one who added it. It was probably a public code that we just implemented at some point.
Oh, okay. Because that is really nice because that's how I have to run it in windowed mode to not have it flicker. Because a lot of games from this era flicker on in video capture when you use full screen for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a version of DirectX or something, but running it in windowed mode.
I have the same thing. I have the same thing in Nebulas. If I'm in a
Oh.
Nebula and I record, then it kind of does this flickering thing.
Oh, you're still cutting out. That is frustrating. I don't know if it's a server issue.
Oh,
Are you getting any kind of issues over Discord with the voice? Is the voice connected icon like changing from like green to
no,
anything else?
no,
Oh,
it's no. It's still green. Very strange.
that's weird. It's not terrible. It's just like every so often it cuts out, so we miss a word or two. But it's
The other thought is are you using voice activation or push to talk? What?
There we go. I'm using voice activation, but I'm also using noise gator because my microphone buzzes when I record.
oh yeah, no, we do hear a little bit of hissing, but we'd rather have the hissing than the cutting out. So if you want,
I don't know what if it didn't do that at the start of the recording, at the start of the podcast. If it's just happened just now, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, it seems to be a newish thing. It's not a big deal. Just making you aware of it. We'll work our way through it.
All right,
Ah.
let's quickly test this.
Screw it, we're doing it live.
Do it live.
There we
Let's
go.
just do it. Okay,
Let's see if this fixes it.
that sounds good. You sound fine to me. Um, so I wanted to ask because you guys probably know more about this than anyone. Like, because I've noticed in Discovery, I don't know if this is in the vanilla game, but I've noticed some of the battles can get pretty big with at least I think there was one Nomad battle I was in with a few dozen ships on screen at the same time. What would you say is like the limit to how many ships on screen you can have at one time? And has Discovery been able to add to that over vanilla?
Well, let's just say again, I really don't think the vanilla Freelancer was intended for large battles like this. Again, I really do think that the vanilla Freelancer was probably. I actually see my. Am I still cutting out?
A little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Very strange.
Which is weird because it seems to be fine on our end. Like I don't know if this is gonna jinx it, but we haven't dropped one frame the entire time, you guys. And I'm not.
And
Jesus
crash.
Christ.
I am knocking
And
on wood.
crash.
I'm knocking on wood right now.
Yeah. No, we had this audio problem too whenever when he was giving me the tour around the system, and
Oh.
we had some of the cutout stuff on Discord. So I don't know.
Very strange. Well, I just lowered my voice pickup volume, so maybe that is going to fix it a little bit.
Wow,
I'm
you
really
didn't cut out
looking.
once.
I'm-
You didn't cut out once.
Yeah,
there. That's
yeah.
great.
It looks like
maybe
that was the deal.
maybe that was the deal. Okay, let's leave it at this level then. But yeah, what was I talking about again?
How many ships on screen? Because I think if
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
correctly, in vanilla, the biggest battle was, I think it was the battle with the nomads at the end, and that was only
Yes.
maybe a couple dozen. But it looks like the battles here can be a bit bigger. Am I?
A lot bigger.
Oh, so how big can the battle be? Would you say in Discovery?
Well, the biggest battle that I remember from recent history was a battle between the Outcasts and the Corsairs, which involved about 60 people in the same system.
Oh my god!
At which point the server was starting to feel very uneasy because it's not so much about the FPS. Yeah. When you're in a battle like this, yes, your game FPS just goes down. It doesn't matter what kind of system you're using because the game engine was never supposed to be. Again, I really do believe that the vanilla Freelancer was never intended to be more of a, when it comes to multiplayer anyway, more of a kind of, LAN party-esque experience. So the game just starts kind of wheezing whenever something like that happens. But it's not actually the FPS. It's not the model. It's not the poly count of the ships involved, but rather I think it's the netcode itself. Because
Oh,
every single projectile needs to be sent for every single player. Every single player needs to be updated
oh, for
of
God's
what is
sakes.
going on.
Oh, I
That
see.
is a pain.
And even with a more modern computer, it still chugs. Is that because it can only use one CPU?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you try to do it on two CPUs, sadly, we need the entity to kick you off the server. You start doing that because it turns out if you if you run Freelancer on two cores, it makes the game run twice as fast.
What?
It's actually
Yep,
kind of funny.
that is actually kind of funny. Like, what is this? This is like having the freaking turbo button back for the old PC. Remember when all the games were locked to the CPU frequency? Well,
Oh
I
yes,
mean,
turbo.
Do not
I mean,
remember that.
we currently ventured into the topic of very strange freelancer related technical issues. Well, again, if you're, for example, playing with a uncapped frame rate, if you've been on the server, you've probably seen that message. Hey, don't run the client at more than 155 frames per second, otherwise it's gonna crap out.
What?
But yeah, yeah, exactly. If you see, have you ever seen a player who's kind of like spazzing around, like backwards and forwards? He seems to have like he has fine ping, he has 30 ping, everything's fine, but as he's moving, he's just jittering back and forth. Well, that's because his game is running at a uncapped frame rate. The game cannot handle it. Like the information that it sends to the server gets garbled.
What?
Yes, that is an actual rule we had to place on the server. Do not limit your maximum FPS, otherwise you are going to jitter for other players. And obviously, other players are fine for you, but they see you jumping around. And obviously, when it comes to player versus player fights, that is a annoyance at best and cheating at worst.
So,
But yeah, that person in the stream chat, he actually mentioned strict rules. That is a problem, and the rules are there. The reason we have a legal document worth of rules is because Freelancer as a game is so freaking old, and
hmm,
there are things we cannot mod. There are things we cannot mod. There are specific game systems that we cannot alter, and
like
so we
what?
have. Well, for example, hey, don't shoot a player without a warning. Don't just you're sitting outside of Manhattan, for example, and you're on your Liberty Navy character, pops out another Liberty Navy character in a battleship, just opens fire on you and kills you. There is nothing we can do in the game that would prevent a player from doing that, but obviously that is against the server rules. Oh, for the sake of the example.
Oh, wow. So,
So the rules exist because we physically cannot enforce something, like from a game mechanics point of view. And sadly, that is the case for every single roleplay server ever, because when it comes to making sure that the game environment is fit for roleplaying, there's just certain rules players need to follow.
yeah, I guess one of the biggest crimes about all this is you can't get Freelancer anywhere digitally, like at all, like legally anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it baffles the mind. I mean, I thought it was a fairly good seller back in the day, and you would think that. I mean, Microsoft has been cashing in on nostalgia with Age of Empires, Age of Mythology, Rise of Nations, blah blah blah. Why not this? I wonder.
So does this have anything to do with Roberts?
Probably not. There is a very popular belief at this point that the source code of the game required to. I'm cutting out again, aren't I?
Just a little bit.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Very strange.
It's not that bad. Anyway, the source code of the game, you were saying.
The source code of the game is that you are required to have in order to digitally repack the game for digital distribution. is not accessible anymore.
Oh no.
So that is
Oh.
the reason why Freelancer remains on GOG as one of the top 10 most required, like desired games to be on GOG for the last 5 years. And it still hasn't been.
Oh, that's
So they just can't
And that
make
is
an
why,
install.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
I think this is the same reason why we don't have Homeworld Cataclysm either.
And the bad part is that, hey, I mean, you can still find Freelancer in bins, still find it on eBay, on Amazon, but again, those are limited physical copies. Many of the copies that you find on Amazon, on eBay, specifically on eBay, these guys are collector's tier items. You know, the box set, all of the advanced collector's edition, and the prices are there to match. So we had Discovery Freelancer in 2015 decided to potentially bite a bullet, and we simply added the game ISO for download to the mod section. Sadly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of a legal gray area. I mean, you're not hosting it yourself. You're just pointing to somewhere that is and saying, "Hey, you want the game? There you go."
Let's say that you have bought the game before, right? But your disk
Yeah.
is scrambled and you obviously cannot do. But yeah, no, see, the reason why this is a gray area is that there is no monetary benefit for us, and at the same time, if there is no cutting into any sort of profit, it's obvious that it's not distributed anymore. We are basically allowing players to access a product that whose demand is not being met by the original distributor.
Oh, I agree, and it's a real crime that's not being met because I tell people all the time, "Hey, you should play this," but they can't, not legally, really anyway. Um, it's just such a shame because this is even the vanilla version of this is still a great game. Like I've probably played through the single player campaign like 5-6 times. I think the most
So it does actually hold up.
yeah. Yeah, it holds up really well. You were saying all the voice acting alone. You guys haven't touched that.
Tobias Esquire.
It's just amazing like how much of it there is. And how it just flushes out the game so well even to this day.
Oh, Jesus Christ. If only they could have expanded their development cycle for maybe a year. One more year, and it would have been amazing.
Yeah, I know. I got to I went to this thing called GameStock at Microsoft back in like 99, 2000. And
Oh, that is where they did have that preview for the.
they had a
Did they?
preview of it. They had they had this big video with massive stations and this amazing like open universe. It was incredible. And then 3 years later we got what we got. And
It was still good.
it's not bad, but I got to just see a little bit of what it could have been, at that event.
Yep.
And it was I don't know if that
It's
video
like
still
ordering a
exists
pizza
somewhere.
and you get the pizza with the toppings slightly skewed to one side.
No,
But
it
hey,
was like
it's
it was like you ordered a large with 3 toppings and you got a small with half the pizza with the topping you wanted and half the pizza with some other topping that you didn't ask for. That's basically how it felt. and
still pizza though.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not really knocking it because Freelancer is still a great game. I just wish, like, whenever I talk to someone who,
I just wish it was that. I just wish it was actually say like if we didn't see that preview, we wouldn't care probably.
not only that,
It's just
but
a
it's
shame.
like even what exists is still good, but I wish there was just like a way for people to easily get it. For years, for example, I'll bring up an example. SWAT 4 was not available digitally for like several years.
Yeah.
And it hit GOG earlier this year. It's still in their like top seller list months later because people still love and play that game. And I feel like if somehow Microsoft was able to find the code in a desk drawer somewhere and put it on GOG, people would buy the crap out of this. And then probably more
They
people would,
really would.
and then more people would probably play your mod. You know?
See, and that's the argument I have for Blizzard when they say, "Oh, well, Warcraft 1 and 2, they're just so old, they're too boring. People won't like it. They're not going to buy it." I'm like, "Really?
Bullshit.
Really?
People
It's
still
huge.
play
I mean,
StarCraft like the first StarCraft. They
Yes.
released
which is why
the
they're
first
remastering.
StarCraft.
Which is why they're remastering it.
Not even remastered. They released the original StarCraft 1.
Right, for free because they're
For free.
remastering the first one. That's why, because they're remastering
Yeah.
it and they're gonna release it. So that's why they made the first one free.
Well, then probably Warcraft 1 is probably going to follow. I mean, if they're doing one thing, they might as well probably do the other one as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a market for these older games, and it just amazes me how some companies just can't or won't jump on that bandwagon. You know, like with this game, for example, or like why can't I buy Crimson Skies somewhere? You know, God damn it. I would pay if GOG put that on there today for $10, even though I own it on disc, buy that in a nanosecond. No question. Because that game's amazing. It's so frustrating. You know, like I can't even imagine how many more people would play your mod Discovery if it was available on GOG. You know,
But what they enjoyed, because one of the biggest faults of Disco, and I'm obviously not, I'm not afraid of talking about that, is the fact, yes, it's a roleplay server, but again, that means it's a niche. It's a niche attraction for people who like that.
Sure.
Well, yeah, because it's like,
Sadly-
well, what's the end game? Well, the end game is interacting
Other
with other
players.
people.
Exactly.
And there's a saying that hell is other people. So
Well, again, the problem is we are currently the most active surviving multiplayer freelancer experience. And people still want to try the multiplayer experience, even if it means coming to our mod, because our mod does not drastically change the game.
well, even in vanilla freelancer multiplayer, once you get up to a certain place, I mean, it's not really like the game continues to stack challenges in front of you, right? I mean, at some point you've basically dominated the game, and there's nothing else to do.
You can max out. It's just that it's kind of hard to do in Disco because there's always something.
Yeah, it sounds like you can make your own
anger the
challenges
game master.
and, yeah.
Well, you
yeah.
anger,
I mean,
you anger the admin, and they just bring all the aliens to.
Oh
destroy
yeah.
you. and have you guys talked about player-owned stations yet? Because that's a hot thing.
That's a hot thing. It's always been a hot thing because there's usually so much drama when someone blows them off.
You can build a station. You can build your own stations in this.
Exactly.
What?
You're probably Yep. And if you played if you played around in Pennsylvania, you probably already saw some of these. One of the storage depots for helium, right outside the field, is maintained by a player.
Yeah, which is super convenient because otherwise you would have to fly clear around the planet because the mining
Not
area
only
is on the
that,
backside.
remember that the best sell point is about 30 systems away. So obviously you're not going to do that in your dinky little freighter, right?
Yeah.
No, let someone else with a 5,000 cargo ship do that. And obviously he doesn't want to wait until you fill up his cargo hold. Yeah, he's going to just get the helium that you brought to that base. So it is a quasi-dynamic economy that players can involve themselves in.
Which is really nice because, like I was saying earlier, Freelancer didn't have much of an economy at all.
No, that's actually something we really did. Freelancer was plagued. The original Freelancer was plagued with something that we called AB routes when it comes to trading. You You take something from Manhattan, you go to New London, you take something from New London, and you go back to Manhattan. It's basically just an A-B route. In Disco, we basically removed that.
Which is nice because it adds a little more variety. Like I would not have gone through like 11 systems last night if I hadn't found this one piece of cargo that sold really well in this other system, 45 hops away.
Do you guys ever like change the commodities a little to kind of mix it up so that it's not
every once in a while there are bumps. There are some changes to the pricing. For example, one of the last was in Omega 7 where players mine not helium, silver and copper. And obviously, since the place was suddenly so very dangerous, the copper and silver prices just went up. Obviously, it's just a manual thing that a server admin does, but we still do that every once in a while. So every once in a while, I personally like to bump stuff like smuggling commodities. So you have sneaky people, junkers, and freelancers trying to dock on Planet Manhattan with things they should rather not. It gives other players something to do.
Yeah, well, I noticed in the battleship that was right outside the newbie dock, you guys were paying a bounty of like 45,000 instead of the normal 10,000 credits for the was it the junker pilots or
yes,
whoever
and
they were.
Actually, it's because one of your guys commented that it would be very interesting if there was an alternative to mining helium. I would really like if these missions paid a little bit more. I can't really without patching make the these missions pay more, but I can make a base that sells the pilots for more. There's always a way to kind of fix things.
Yeah.
One way or another.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess like, does money ever just become not important though? Because you've got enough, right? So then at that point, it's just like you just keep the same guns, the same ship. There's really no need to change equipment. You find that ship that you're happy in.
Technically, yes, but practically that never happens because, hey, you players, you friend them, and they say, hey, let's go, play on whatever. Hey, I don't want to sit on my Liberty Navy character anymore. I want to go be a badass space pirate in the Omegas. Mm. And, then you end up making a character in the Omegas and meet other people and say, hey, you know what? That character seems interesting. That ID seems interesting to fly. Let me just make that. And, that's how it goes. And that's how you end up with 20 accounts with like 300 worth of characters. Hey.
So let's talk about being a badass space pirate for a moment, because there are rules, because it's a role play server. So I can't just roll a pirate character and then run around willy-nilly shooting everything.
Well,
so no, you have to open communications with somebody and say, hi, I'm a pirate, I'm about to kill you.
Yeah, basically it's mostly for the sake of fair play, because again, the whole point of the server is player interaction, right? Just having someone jump out of the jump gate and you killing them is not really a lot of interaction.
Oh, that's a lot of interaction for one of them.
Yeah, for one of them.
You've been interacted with.
And now you can go interact back like 17 jumps back where you respawn. But yeah, really, when it comes to piracy, there's not really a lot of rules. Basically, just have an ID that allows you to pirate people, and make sure that the demands are, vaguely in the sense of normal. Like, don't make an demand for someone to, hey, give me all of your freaking credits, like 10 billion credits or something.
That's
There's a lot of people who make a lot of money from piracy, and they do it with, quote, reasonable demands. I mean, the point of piracy is to get money, and players are more inclined to pay when they basically look at their cargo, look at the amount of money you ask for them, and go like, I'm so close to the sell point, I might as well pay this freaking guy, and then I'm gonna post a bounty on him because fucking hell. Something along those lines. Oh, we had a pirate that just ended up like he rolled up with a bomber. And by the way, like if you want me to talk about the ship types that we added, that he
I
rolled up with a
do.
bomber
I do.
in
Yes.
a mining section. There were like 7 people in mining ships in that mining section, and he's like, "Hey guys, guess what? I'm your new landlord." Ha! And obviously, they just looked at one another and they're like, "Get the hell out of here, dude!" And then he killed them all. That guy, I think he still has a bounty on his head to this day.
So you were saying about some of the ship types you guys added. What besides the bomber? What were some of the other ship types you guys added?
Well, basically, there are a few main ways to describe them. So obviously, first you have the fighters, the so-called snub ships, right? They range from a light fighter or quote a interceptor. These things fly faster, but obviously they're basically glass cannons. They're still viable in PvP. It's just that try not to hit a nuke mine. And it goes all the way up to super heavy fighters, which are basically just slower, fatter ships with much more guns. And you have also bombers, which are specifically made to take down larger ships on the cheap. So if you buy a battleship for about 600 million credits, then you can actually do considerable amount of damage with a bomber that costs about 25 million credits to set up, but it is going to take a while. After that, you have all the transport ships, starting from the freighters to large, huge transports, container transports, etc. Then you have gunboats, which are the smallest capital ship in the game, by the way. They are specifically designed to take on snubs. And they have cruisers, which are geared towards long range bombardment of larger ships. And then you also have battleships, which are exactly what it sounds. And technically speaking, every single ship in the game can damage all the other ships in the game, one way or another. Depends on how you load it out. So even a couple of fighters can do a reasonable amount of damage to a battleship if they try.
Wow, that's wow.
It's a nightmare to balance, but we kind of found a way, while trial and error, and a lot of drama and a lot of complaining.
Yeah. So let's start wrapping up. Cause it's late for you too. What is like the big thing? Like, what would you say is the big thing you added in your latest patch, and what is the big thing that's coming in your next patch?
Oh, we are. One of the latest things that we added was a story. I didn't mention this. Still remains a con.
Sorry, you cut out.
And
Could
I'm
you?
still. Yep. I see that. This is really strange.
It is a
It's
little
not
bit.
supposed to do something like that.
Sorry about that, folks listening on the stream and the podcast. It doesn't seem to be anything we can do about it. Could you just repeat though what you were just saying, please?
Um. So it was the storyline update. It was a bit of a more of a content patch. This last one, it just updated a lot of the plugins that we use for server events. And one of the next planned big things is the introduction of more capital ship gear. Because for a time, people were complaining that the PvP balance was mainly geared towards fighters, and the fighters got a lot of new goodies, not a lot of new weapon types. And capital ships, they kind of gathered dust. And now we're fixing that. One step of
Yes.
a time. Step of a time.
Sorry, my thing cut out again. So, any idea? Um, any idea when that's going to be happening?
As soon as the current test server stops crashing itself. As soon as we find all the problems with it, then we push the patch. And then hopefully nothing catches fire.
Right.
Because
So-
again, in the end, this is Freelancer we're talking about.
So if folks wanna find the Discovery mod, I'm gonna have links in the show notes. But if they are you guys like if someone wants to help work on the mod, are you guys open to people helping you out as well? And if
Exactly.
so, how do people get in touch with you?
Very simple. All you need to do is be a member of the community, as in register on the forums. The forums actually have a separate section for modding and modding tutorials and modding tools, and anyone can apply to be a trainee dev. As soon as their work is at a level where they can be, incorporated. But again, we actually had a fairly recent boost in new devs, because at some point in the past we kind of slacked there a little bit. But yeah, things are much more active right now, and there's a lot of new talent on the scene. Really, anyone can contribute to the mod and the community, and that's again what makes Discovery fun. 50% is the end game, and the other 50% is the community.
And it looks like you have a pretty active community based on your forums and everything, and the server population, which is pretty goddamn awesome. Especially because it's like, I hate to bring up Jumpgate again, but it's so sad like to see like 2 people playing Jumpgate, which is a really great game. But then you log into this and you see, I've never seen less than a dozen people on this, and it's more accessible than Jumpgate. But it's also apparently much more popular, which is awesome.
And it's still a niche thing, and that's something we're still. Again, we kind of hope that this is going to remain the case. We see the activity, we see the players want this sort of thing, so we're going to, keep working on it to the best of our application, to the best of our ability.
It's definitely a niche within a niche. Definitely this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
But folks, the game again is called Discovery Freelancer. You could find a link to that in the show notes. It is free. It also questionably includes a link to the base Freelancer game, which you also need. We talked about that. Yeah. Yeah.
We know a guy.
Yeah, we know a guy.
We don't own this game, but we have an understanding with the people who do.
We have a dealer.
That's
We got a guy with a trench coat in an alley and a CD-ROM. But if you can, you should find a legal copy of Freelancer anyway. It's not that expensive, and it's definitely worth owning, because even the vanilla game of Freelancer, it runs on Windows, at least 7. That's what I use. It runs out of the box on Windows 7. Without any problems.
It runs on Windows 10 as long as you enable the Microsoft
direct,
Net component.
The direct play net thing. Yeah. Which apparently is only a few button clicks. Once you figure out how to do it, it's not hard to do. But even the vanilla Freelancer game is worth owning, because it's a great story. An amazing flight combat engine that really is still unmatched to this day. And Discovery just takes what made Freelancer great initially and just adds more awesomeness to it. So it's definitely worth tracking down a copy of Freelancer if you want to own it legally. It's definitely worth it. But if you're low on money, anyway, cough. Just a few show notes before we wrap up. This is the last podcast before the contest is canceled. If you haven't heard, we are running a contest where if you leave us a review on iTunes and screenshot it, and send that screenshot to us, you'll be entered in a contest to win keys. So, stop on by and do that. Leave us because it's a win-win. More reviews we get, the more visible we are, and you get a chance to win a free game.
And apparently, if you do it, you're guaranteed to be the winner, because you'll be the only one.
No, we've had
others.
We've had a decent amount of entries, which is great.
See, bribery, it works.
Yeah, bribery does work. It's the only way it works.
And you get a free audiobook from Ansible, which means you come on Discord and I'll narrate stories to you. Fan fiction.
this
And
And
Thursday.
if you leave 2 reviews, you'll be entered to win
No.
Space Depends.
No.
You also get a free card of mine.
For the oh shit moment when you're on the bridge.
Oh my gosh. On Thursday, if you own it, we're going to be playing some multiplayer Titanfall 2. So if you don't own it, tune in and watch us all be terrible, because we will all be terrible, especially compared to people who play that all the time. I play it somewhat regularly and I'm still terrible compared to people who play it more than I do. Oh my God, it's so easy to be terrible at that game, but it's still so much fun anyway. It's so great. So that's what we're going to be playing on Thursday, excuse me. And next week on the show, we're going to be welcoming one of the developers of the Master of Orion 1 clone. Not 2. Everyone's trying to do 2. No, this is Remnants of the Precursor, which is definitely trying to copy Master of Orion 1, which I think is a better idea. Because honestly, now that I've played Master of Orion 1, I kind of think it's the better game of the 2. Honestly, I think it's a better game. And I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. Literally. So yeah, that's next week on the show. And if you want to try Remnants of the Precursors, it is free. You can go to their site and download the alpha and try it out yourself. It is totally free. And it's really looking like it's coming along nicely. I believe this is the game where the guy who made the brutal AI for Pandora, the Alpha Centauri-ish 4X, with just a cunning, brutal AI. He's working on this one. So it will be challenging. So that is next week on the show. So Syndromes, I want to thank you for talking to us in the middle of the night, Latvia time.
I'm vibrating with coffee.
Oh my God.
I have to go to work in 2 hours.
Oh dear Lord. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I really, really appreciate. I hope you have a short, if I remember correctly, your commute is very short to your job.
Yes, across the house.
Oh, okay, that's nice. So you don't even have to drive. Okay, that's perfect. So yeah,
Yes,
really.
and then I have another cup of coffee there.
Papageno on YouTube. If you look in the description below you on YouTube, there's a link to the video. There's a link to the mod, but there will also be a link to the mod in the show notes for the MP3 that you can subscribe to. So, Syndromes, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this. Again, folks, this mod is amazing. It takes, like I said, everything that's amazing about Freelancer and just adds bolts, duct tapes, spits onto it.
Sticky notes.
So much more good stuff to it that it's definitely worth your time. Check out, and again, free to play. Well, not free to play, but it is free to play. You can play it for free.
Feel free to play it.
Feel free to play it. Please feel free to play it. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. I have a theory as to why we did not drop 1 frame tonight. Oh my God. This is the cleanest.
Did you forgot to record?
I forgot to turn on the stream. Oh my God. No. This is the first live stream in ages where we have not dropped 1 frame. And I might have some theories as to that, but I'm very excited. So thank you for watching and listening, everyone, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.